I'm Olivia Squizzle, and today we're going to talk about Peter Pan. Disney got it wrong. This isn't Peter Pan. Peter Pan is much more ruthless, conceited, thoughtless, and rude. The book continually mentions the terrible things Peter has done, at one point even indicating that he has killed lost boys who started to grow up. He's a serial killer, forgetting his last victim as soon as he has a new one. But the heartless ways of Peter Pan is what makes the book so heartfelt. In the cartoon, you instantly see why Wendy is swooned by this boy, and anyone would be eager to join the noble lad on an adventure. But in the book, Peter is much more demanding. He grabs Wendy by the wrist and is like, "You're coming with me to Neverland." Of course, he wins her over in the end, charming her with his, conceitedness. He's just like, "Well, actually, Wendy, I'm the best thing to ever exist." And then Wendy's like, "Okay." So, Michael, John, and Wendy all go to Neverland together. And in the Disney adaptation, they're gone for 2 nights, which completely takes away the weight of, the book. They're gone for weeks. Their parents don't know if their children are alive for, weeks. It's to the point where John and Michael don't remember their parents. They believe that Wendy is their real mother, which is something the movie doesn't explain at all. That Peter and Wendy take on a parental role to all the Lost Boys, and Wendy's mother zone the whole time, and it's the funniest thing to be like, you're not friend zoned, you're mother zoned. This boy sees you as his mother, even though, you don't want that's not what you want. Wendy, cares deeply for Peter, but knows that he will never feel the same about her, and it's, kind of heartbreaking. This adds to the bittersweetness of the children's eventual departure from Neverland. Peter tells them that, he flew back home and saw that his window was closed, that his mother didn't leave the window open for him to come back. And you see why he seems to despise adults so much, because he has this, longing for a mother, and, Wendy, he wanted Wendy to be that person, even if he wouldn't admit it, and now she's leaving too. This one small detail makes you relate so much more to that character, because you see, his motivations for what he's done. But this, in the book, leads him to fly back to the Darling Nursery before Wendy, John, and Michael so he can lock the window. He sneaks in with Tink and is going to lock the window so they can't go home. And in the end, in one weak moment, probably in Peter's mind, he probably thinks of this as the weakest thing he's ever done. He sees Mrs. Darling so sad, so depressed on not having her children, and thinks, "Oh, Mrs. Darling needs Wendy as much as I do." He still wants Wendy, but he decides to leave the window open. When he gets back to Neverland, we see how heartbroken he is. He wants to cry, but decides not to, and he decides to laugh because he thinks that would spite Wendy. He flies past Wendy's window one last time, and Mrs. Darling has to physically restrain Wendy from flying out to meet him. In fact, the Lost Boys are tied to their beds every night to prevent them from flying away. Wendy does get to go back for spring cleaning the next year, and Peter is too self-absorbed to notice that she's growing up, and, he's forgotten all their adventures. The next time he comes is years later, and to his horror, finds Wendy has grown. The scene is written beautifully. Wendy sits by the firelight, afraid to let Peter see that she's grown up. But when it comes time to, as she's about to flip the light on, Peter is afraid for the only time in his life. The only thing that scared him was losing Wendy. Wendy runs out of the room, leaving Peter crying on the floor, which wakes her sleeping daughter, Jane, who greets Peter with the same words Wendy used years before. "Boy, why are you crying?" And so the story goes on and on with Peter coming back for Jane and then Jane's daughter and her daughter after that, and Peter Pan living on forever in children's mind as the boy who wouldn't grow up. But I still have one question. Why is this thoughtless killer so well loved? Oh, but he saves Tiger Lily's life and Wendy's on occasion. Yes, but he always had selfish ambition behind these rescues. It was a game for him. It boosted his ego. If he got to be the hero, he got like one more point of being cool. I think it's Wendy's love for Peter that redeems him. In a sense, he represents Endless One. If Wendy could just tell him the right story or play the right game, maybe he would love her, and to have the love of such a loveless creature would be quite a feat. Peter is what every child thinks he or she wants but can never have, and would never be satisfied with. And Disney, well, Disney kind of missed that. In giving Peter a heart, they took it away from the story, they took it away from Wendy, and they took it away from all the children. It's not supposed to be a feel-good movie. It's supposed to be a daunting and sad movie that shows the reality that what you want is never going to be what you need and what's good for you in the long run, and will even keep you contented for a very long time. I haven't seen the other, adaptations. There's a lot of other forms of it. I've seen the movie and I've read the book. But I was in the, the timeless Broadway, whatever, at a local theater, and I almost played Peter Pan, I almost played Wendy, I almost played Smee. Ended up playing one of the Lost Boys, Curly, who, in the Disney one, he was named Cubby. The Broadway version of Peter is much nicer than the book. I don't know if it's how he's written or how he was played, but I think it works on stage because live theater is different than books and movies. You get a stronger connection with the audience and are able to tell a story in almost a simpler way, especially through song. In the play, Peter has a much better friendship with the Lost Boys and a better view of mothers. In the play, it's Peter's ballad, Distant Melody.
I recall this song I used to hear.
That makes all the characters decide to go home. That makes the Lost Boys want to find a home. And that song, it shows Peter's longing for a mother. It shows that no matter all the adventure you can have without the stability and love of family, it's never enough. But this version of Peter I still find better than Disney's, because Disney's doesn't make him a heartless, killer, and they also don't make him, actually, friendly. He's friendly towards Wendy and John and Michael, but he doesn't have a good relationship with the Lost Boys, and he doesn't have the added storyline of him and his own mother. So, just the fact that Disney missed, multiple of the points that make Peter Pan such an iconic story, it's really? They made a nice adventure film, I guess. It's just when you read the book or see the play, there are so many more, emotional scenes and stuff. But Peter Pan remains a timeless classic. Honestly, I would love to see a TV show where it's all of Peter Pan's adventures, because he can have as many as he wants because he never ages. And the rest of the cast can be, recasted every few seasons, or every season, because, he's always meeting new people. There's always going to be people coming and going from Neverland. But I don't know how you're going to find a 12-year-old actor who still has all his baby teeth and will stay 12 for, 100 years. The inevitability of growing up is portrayed in A Boy Who Won't. And, I genuinely, was almost in tears when the book ended, because there's something about, when you become attached and connected to those characters, being in the play, then reading the book, you know, if you've grown up with that, when that story ends, it feels like your childhood's over. And I think that's the nostalgic effect Peter Pan has on people, is that every time you watch it, you read it, you see Peter Pan, it reminds you that you never get that time back. In the most cynical, twisted way possible. Because Peter's not a good guy. He's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be what kids become when, instead of being influenced by kind, nurturing parents, you leave a kid on an island with a bunch of pirates and natives, and you let him fend for himself, and he becomes a savage, and it portrays him in such a way that he's enticing, charming, and wonderful, but that doesn't make him good. And I think he's one of the most, like, complex, like, moral characters, because he has so much depth to him, because he can be kind at times, but he can be ruthless, and he's like this demanding captain, but he wants the respect of all who see him. And if you can't respect him, if you can't love him for being Peter Pan, he's like going to kill you. I find it very ironic that Peter Pan's whole thing, like in the book, is that his mother closed his window and he was seemingly replaced by another little boy. There was a different boy in his bed, and he's like so heartbroken over this that he, like, you know, becomes a killer on an island and abducts children. And then how quickly he replaces Wendy with her daughter, and then so on and so on for the rest of his life, presumably, just replacing people. And he saw, like, he should know what that did to him. Can't he see what it did to Wendy? The book is also just written in such a way that it's very comical and twisted and dark, and I love it. And that's why it shouldn't have been a Disney movie. If Disney wanted to make a lighthearted story, it shouldn't have been Peter Pan. It should have been something completely different. Because Peter Pan is not, it's not just a happy story. It's supposed to be so much more than that.